Hello and welcome to the Strong, Healthy, Happy podcast. My name is Deborah. I'm here to talk to you today about certain beliefs and thoughts you have around weight loss. They may be things that you've been told, maybe things you've heard, maybe things that you believe, and I'm going to dispel the myths and the lies that you have been led to believe about weight loss. And I know that some of the things that I'm going to be talking about today, I certainly believe them at one time or another. Often they're beliefs that we carry with us from many, many years ago. We also see things on social media. Just because something's on social media doesn't mean it's true. Some of the beliefs come from diet culture and possibly influencers and what they're promoting or selling and leading us to believe certain things around weight loss. And the problem with some of these beliefs is that they can keep us stuck, set us up to fail, and perpetuate the stop-start cycle that many women find themselves in. So, lie number one, or misbelief number one, is that you have to put your life on hold. And if you want to lose weight, that you need to make it your sole focus. Now, when you have a goal, it is important to if your goal is important to you, to prioritize that goal. But you certainly don't need to put your life on hold. And the problem with putting your life on hold is in the short term, yes, it's something that you might be able to do. It's something that you can really, give it 110%. But long term, it's not going to be sustainable. And this all or nothing approach is what leads in to the stop-start cycle, which isn't going to help you make that progress towards your goal. Because the problem with the stop-start cycle is when everything's good and going well, you make progress. But when it isn't, you're taking steps back and you're actually regressing or stalling your progress. So one of the things that I do in my coaching arena with my clients is encourage women to live their life, to enjoy their social life, but learn how to manage their goals within the social life and the life that they have. So we are often led to believe that we cannot enjoy meals out, that we need to stop drinking alcohol, that we need to cut out all sweet chocolates, cakes, crisps, or any of the foods we deem, in inverted commas, as bad, that we can't be spontaneous, that we have to put life on hold, basically, in the name of our goals. And like I say, it may work temporarily because you're really 100% focused, but it isn't sustainable. And it's not really an enjoyable way to live your life, because your social life is an important part of your life. And being healthy involves all areas of your life, not just your goal. I want you to be able to achieve your goal and enjoy your life, not at the expense of your life or your health. So it's about learning how to navigate those meals out, those social events, to control what you can when you don't have control over what's on the menu, what your friend might be cooking, and the food available, etc. But it's learning how to make those choices, learning how to control what you can. Also recognizing that sometimes it's about making compromises. So if there's something that you really want, you might compromise on something else. And it's also learning that you can attend social occasions, that they don't have to undo your progress, and that you can have a little bit of a plan about how you want to turn up at your social occasion and follow that plan, so that you learn to build self-trust in yourself around food, around social events, and that social events don't necessarily mean that you can't still make progress towards your goals, because you absolutely can. And I know that the women who lose weight and keep it off are the women who don't put their life on hold. Lie or misbelief number two, and that is that you need to be perfect in order to get results. Now, I'm here to tell you categorically, and I talk about this a lot in previous podcast episodes and on my social media, You absolutely don't need to be perfect. And this is not going to be the perfect podcast because I'm just going to pause it here to let my dog out to go in the garden and then come back. Not a perfect condition, but real life. Listener, you would have heard me say this before, and that is that being perfect has a flip side. And the flip side of sometimes being perfect is that on the flip side, it ends up with you completely sabotaging your goals because you couldn't be perfect. And I think that being sometimes perfect is not as beneficial as being imperfectly consistent, because you will make more progress from being imperfectly consistent than you will be from sometimes being perfect. An example of this is, say, you went out for dinner, perhaps, you ate a little bit more than you had planned, or you chose something on the menu that perhaps wasn't the most smartest option that aligned with your weight loss goal, but you enjoyed it, you made a conscious choice. That one bad meal, and I hate using the word bad because it's not about being bad, that meal that may not have aligned with your goals, that one meal doesn't ruin your progress. It's usually what you do after that one meal. In the same way that, say, you had intended to get 3 workouts in your week, but you had to miss a workout. Life threw you a curveball. You didn't get to do that extra workout. Is not letting that one missed workout ruin your progress, because it won't have ruined your progress. It's having the ability to carry on regardless and not letting one hiccup, one bump in the road, one thing that you didn't do or you did do get in the way of you being consistent, because consistency beats perfection every time. You don't need a perfect day or a perfect week. You just need to be consistent over the weeks, because consistency over time is what gets you progress. And if we look at and think about how you currently are today and how you feel in your body and how your body composition is made up of today, is an accumulation of what you've done your whole life to get to this point. And it is about what you do over time. So, in the same way it's taken your whole life to get to this point that you find yourself now, one missed workout, one not so ideal meal isn't going to ruin your progress. What gets you to where you want to be is you being consistent over time. Lie or misbelief number 3, and that is the scales. Women believe that the scales tell them the whole story. And the scales are only one measure of progress. And it's not always a reliable measure of progress day to day. Over time, yeah, it can be a reliable measure, but certainly not day to day. As a human being, your scale weight will fluctuate because that's normal. And there are many things that can affect scale weight and those fluctuations. And I've recorded a whole podcast about that, what that is. And I can put a link into that podcast in the show notes if you did want to take a listen to it. It really helps keep your head in the game and not react to those fluctuations in your scale weight, because scale weight fluctuations happen. Sometimes the scale weight can fluctuate due to stress, poor sleep, eating food you don't usually eat, perhaps higher salt volume, perhaps a little bit more carbohydrates than usual, stress, busy days. Sometimes your training and inflammation caused from training can affect scale weight, and a multitude of other reasons. And it's one of the reasons that why I don't rely solely on scale weight. When I coach clients, we use 3 measures of progress, and those 3 measures are scale weight for those ladies that want to use scale weight. I also use progress photos, because progress photos help me get a visual representation of what your body compositions look like. And often it's from the progress photos where I can see a loss in body fat as opposed to body weight, which can include bone, muscle, tissue, organs, water. And that's why another reason why the scale weight fluctuations day to day aren't reliable. A lot of the time, your scale weight will fluctuate because of your water content. Your response to the scale weight fluctuations, obviously when it goes up, is really important, because it's about responding and not reacting. Because the first sort of unpredictable thing to do is to have a reaction and think what you're doing isn't working, when actually what you have been doing probably is working, just on the day to day, or perhaps the day that you happen to take your scale weight, it's fluctuated up. And if you think what you're doing isn't working, you give up, you dive into the biscuit tin, then you really are going to be setting yourself back. And what's important is that you don't let let one number on the scales dictate your next decision. The scales are data, and I don't want the scales to form a judgment on how you're doing in your progress, because it's only one part of the story. And I always think it's really valuable before you get onto the scales is to actually ask yourself, how am I feeling? Because often, if you've been supporting your health, you've been moving more, your steps are a bit higher, you've managed to exercise, you've been making healthier choices, preparing nutritious meals, those things alone are going to be helping you to feel better, irrespective of what the scales are saying. And it's worth remembering how good you feel, or what it is that how you feel before you get on those scales, and then letting the scales completely change the way that you feel just because of that number. And if you do stay consistent with what you've been doing, you'll find the scales will come down. Lie number 4, or misbelief number 4, there is something called starvation mode, which women believe or are told that exists. Now, first of all, there is no such thing as starvation mode. There is something called adaptation. And an example of what this means in terms of adaptation is, say I just use a random client as an example. She may come to me wanting to lose weight. When she starts her coaching journey, she weighs a lot heavier to what she will weigh after she's been working with me, say, for 6 months. When she's at her starting and heavier weight, the amount of calories that she needs just to stay alive, which is known as your BMR, is going to be higher. Her calorie requirement in general, and the amount of calories that she can eat in a day, is going to be higher because she is a larger person. And even if I put her into a deficit to lose weight, calories are still going to be reasonably high, dependent on her height and her weight and her activity level. Now, as this client begins to lose weight, and say 6 months later, she becomes a smaller person, her BMR requires less calories to function, and she's going to require less calories day to day. Her body has adapted to her being a smaller person. Her body has also adapted to her moving more, to her exercising, and her calorie requirement is going to reduce because she is now in a smaller body and her overall calorie requirement is less. And so it's not that she is in starvation mode. It just means that it's working. What we're doing is working. And as a result of that, her calorie requirement is dropping because she's losing weight, because she is losing body fat. Her body is working more efficiently. It has adapted to what we have been doing over time. And this is great. This is progress. This is what she's been working hard for, to get to this point, to be able to lose body fat. So there is no such thing as starvation mode. Most women aren't under eating. I'm not saying there may be a meal or a day where you've eaten lower calories, but generally speaking, you are not in starvation mode. Usually what happens is you may think that you're sticking to the calories. Often, those of you who don't have the support and guidance of a coach, you might start to track your food, and MyFitnessPal will probably throw you a calorie target of 1,200 calories, because that's what it usually does for most women, no matter their height, their starting weight. That's what it usually throws out. And it might sound like, oh yeah, well, I'm definitely going to lose weight on these calories. and you invariably will if you have the ability to stick to them. Now, you may genuinely think that you're sticking to them, but what happens is you may do that for a short period of time, but after a while, it does get quite restrictive. It is quite low calories. And what happens is it can lead to a little bit of mindless eating. And, subconsciously, you forget about that, or a bit of picking. And also, if you feel a bit low energy, you may start moving a little less as well. So you're not expending as many calories. But usually, what happens is over restriction can then lead to overeating. And the amount of calories that you think you're consuming, actually, overall, over the course of a week, if you're overeating at periods of time, is going to be higher than the calorie target you think you're sticking to. And this isn't conscious. A lot of this happens subconsciously. Eating as little as possible isn't the answer. You want to be making sure that you're eating sufficient protein. For women, I always recommend, as a sort of a minimum, without taking into consideration your height, your weight, and your goals and your start point, is not to obviously bring women up slowly, but ideally at least maintaining 100 grams of protein a day. And it takes time to learn how to do this. And, you need to make sure that you have the calories available day to day to be including protein. You want to be supporting muscle maintenance at the very minimum, and protein is going to help repair and maintain the muscle tissue you have. And obviously, ideally, we want to be building muscle, because the more muscle you have, the more calories it expends at rest. And that's a bit of a no-brainer. If you want to be able to eat more calories, more food, by having more calories, but still be achieving the same goal if you had less muscle tissue. Nourishing your body, eating nutritious food, having a balanced diet will help you longer term stick to your calorie target, because it's much more reasonable, gives you more flexibility, allows you to include the foods that you enjoy as well as the foods that you need to eat to support your health. And longer term, you'll be able to be more consistent and sustain your healthy habits, your eating habits, your nutrition, to have more energy, to go out for the walk, to do the exercise, to sleep better. And because we also need to remember that poor sleep can often lead to increased hunger, less feelings of fullness and satiety, and can also impact your cravings because of your low energy. So it is really important to make sure that you're eating enough, but obviously not too little calories, because it's very hard to stick to. And there are a lot of knock-on effects as a result of that. I help women lose weight every day. I know that weight loss is a very important goal for many women. It's a very valid goal. It's a goal I've certainly had for myself over the years, and still from time to time now. And what I really want to encourage women, that alongside their weight loss goal, is they don't make that their only goal. Because the problem when weight loss is your only goal is that it loses its shine. It loses the enjoyment of, constantly being on a weight loss journey can become a bit tiresome. And I always think it's very important to focus more about how you feel, because when you feel good, it has a knock-on effect to you doing all the other things that help you to feel good. And so what I really encourage women to do is to become healthier, stronger, and happier, as well as lose weight, because that's what women are searching for, to feel more confident, to feel stronger, to feel happier in their bodies. And showing up for yourself by doing the workout on that day you really can't be bothered, or preparing the meal when you're tired but you know you want to eat a nutritious meal, or even preparing a meal for one and prioritizing the importance of preparing that meal for one if you have to, because your goals matter. You want to feel nourished. You want to eat to support your health as well as your goal. These are the things that help you feel in more control, feel more confidence, have more energy, have more self-respect, have you feeling much more vibrant and energized and more like yourself, so that you can continue losing weight and pursue that journey alongside all the other benefits from looking after your health.